Wasabi guys, Void here coming back at y'all with another deck tech video. This is another Patreon request from Ugaman. Thanks again for being a patron. He wanted me to do a 4-color human tribal deck. Well, he already had a list. He wanted me to give some suggestions, improve it. So I'm doing the deck tech of Saskia the Unyielding. She is perfect for this because she is also 4 colors and a human. Not really anything else though going for her when it comes to human tribal, so she's mainly here for the colors. If you don't know what she does, she is a 3/4 with vigilance and haste. When she enters the battlefield, you choose a player, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. So you could end up dealing double damage to the same player if you attack them, deal combat damage, and then the damage is dealt to them again, or you could deal combat damage to other opponents, and that same exact damage is going to be dealt to the chosen player. So very good at spreading the love around. If you want to get rid of someone, you can choose them and just start swinging at other players. So that way you get the most amount of damage possible and you make sure that you're hitting your other opponents and you're not just singling out anyone. So she's very effective for that reason. So let's get on to the lands here. There's only really 2 worth talking about. The rest is just mana fixing, and I don't typically bring up mana fixing lands just because they're pretty basic. Gavany Township can pay the mana, tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. Super useful because that is a sub theme of the deck. Also, there's other sub themes with tokens and even angels, because a lot of angels have to do with human tribal, and I think that's pretty cool. Cavernous Souls is pretty obvious humans. We do have some angels, so you could do that as well. If you have some more important angels in your hand, you definitely want to be able to get those off. And then we go on to artifacts. We don't have too many. We really just want to focus on mana fixing. We have Soul Ring, pretty basic, gives us the easy 2 mana there. Lightning Greaves, this is more of a combat-based deck, so you want to be able to give our creatures some sort of protection or shroud. Pretty good. Chromatic Lantern, this is a 4-color deck, so any sort of mana fixing that we can get, this is usually the optimal one. Then we play all 6 of the signets that you can play in this deck. I think it's important to max out on the signets. It gives you 2 different colors, pretty solid. And then we have other artifacts here. We play Door of Destinies and Coat of Arms. They do pretty much the same exact thing. Just pump your team up. Coat of Arms is a little bit better, I would say, because as soon as you drop it, all your creatures just get big, equal to the number of humans on the field. That's pretty awesome. Door of Destinies does take a little while to get going, but once you get the counters on it, you're pretty much fine. And now we move on to the creatures. There are a ton in here. There's like 36, I believe. Champion of the Parish, just going to get bigger each time a human enters the battlefield under your control. Pretty simple, but for 1 mana, can't really beat it. Micaeus the Lunarch, X costed, but technically CMC 1. Enters with that many +1/+1 counters on it. You can tap to remove a counter from him to put a +1/+1 counter on all your other creatures, which is awesome. Or you can tap to put a +1/+1 counter on him. So pretty versatile. One of the lower costed cards in the deck. You can take advantage of it. Mother of Runes, fantastic human. Just in just about every single white deck I would consider putting her into, especially if you have an emphasis on creatures. You can swing in uncontested, give a certain creature protection from a color. Never a bad thing in this type of deck. Metallic Mimic counts as a human or an angel, whatever you need when it's on the battlefield. And all your other creatures of the chosen type enter the battlefield with an extra +1/+1 counter. So that's fantastic. Thalia's Lieutenant, very similar to Champion of the Parish. Also a +1/+1 counter on your other humans that enter the battlefield. And there are a lot of these human tribal cards from the Innistrad plane or the Innistrad block, whatever you want to call it. There's just a lot of themes around protecting humans, and you see this with angels too. It's so fantastic, and human tribal is very underrated. And we have Hamlet Captain, gives +1/+1 whenever it attacks or blocks to your other humans. I think that's awesome. Not necessarily an anthem, but it's important to have it when it counts, which is usually on combat. Grand Abolisher is fantastic in any deck where you don't necessarily have the best answers, because it means that you're likely going to be the aggressor, and you don't want your opponents countering stuff or exiling or removing anything at instant speed on your turn. So it's a perfect card for the deck. Is double white, so a little risky, but otherwise fantastic. Devout Chaplain, very underrated card. Awesome for human tribal. It's what, again, not a lot of people consider human tribal, but there are some really fantastic cards, and Devout Chaplain is perfect because all you have to do is just pay the mana, tap down 2 humans, and you get to exile an artifact or an enchantment. In a deck that's primarily creature based, having non-creature removal is usually a difficult thing to consider, and especially with humans, you don't have stuff like Rex Sage, you don't have Terrastodons, stuff that can remove non-creature permanents on ETB, but this is fantastic because it goes along with the tribe as well. Archetype of Courage gives all your other creatures first strike, takes away first strike from your opponent's creatures. Fantastic. I love the archetypes as well. Very underrated cards. Zathrid Necromancer. This is another cool card for humans. Whenever Zathrid Necromancer, another human you control, would die, you get a 2/2 zombie. Yeah, unfortunately the zombies don't count as humans, but still, you get something for your humans dying. Human Tribal isn't perfect, but it does have some cool cards like these. Hanwar Garrison, pretty aggressive, gets you some tokens when it attacks. Can also flip. We do play the land that goes with it. I forget what it's called, but yeah, we do play the land. Just check out the deck list. It'll be in the description below. But it's one of those lower CMC creatures we can depend on earlier in the game. Then we play Combat Celebrant, all about getting extra combat steps whenever you attack with it. Exerts. That's pretty nice. And then we play Alesha, who smiles at death, because we do play a lot of smaller creatures, and if we can bring them back off of her attack trigger, I think that's nice. Eternal Witness is a staple in Commander. Just about every single green deck plays it, so why wouldn't human decks play it? Also considered a human. Champion of Lambholt gets a +1/+1 counter whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, and pretty much shuts the game down. Your opponents can't block it, or other creatures, as long as creatures they control have power less than Champion of Lambholt's. I think that's fantastic. Anafenza the Foremost, pretty good, sort of like Graveyard Hate on a creature. I'm not too concerned about getting the +1/+1 counter on another target tapped creature, but rather the fact that, you know, your opponent's graveyards are no longer really a factor. She's fantastic and very underrated in Commander. And then we play both Odrix, the Lunarch, the one that basically, whenever you have Saskia out, all your creatures have Vigilance and Haste when they attack. During combat, you know, all your creatures gain the same static abilities of one creature you have, and Saskia has both Vigilance and Haste, so all your creatures are going to have Vigilance or Haste, and it's the same exact thing for other abilities like First Strike and Death Touch and so on. Then Odrix, Master Tactician, kind of has like a battle cry thing where you need two other creatures to attack, and you basically get to control which creatures block, and likely this is going to win you the game if you can get it off. Very fantastic in white when it comes to combat, but also pretty good in this type of deck too, because both of the Odrix are humans. Then we have Riders of Gavany, can pretty much give all of your humans protection from a specific creature type. Pretty solid, because tribes are a big deal in Commander. You see a lot of tribal decks, especially with Commander 2017. This is not to be underrated or anything like that, because there are a lot of vampire decks, there are a lot of cat decks, a lot of dragon decks. Swinging in uncontested is always nice. This isn't always going to be a factor, but if your opponents are playing specific creatures that you know you can get by because they play a lot of them, I think that's pretty cool. Bruce Tarl, Boorish Herder, another very underrated Commander card, but also pretty good as one of the 99 in Human Tribal. Gives double strike and lifelink to a creature. I think that's pretty awesome. Whenever ETBs or it attacks, that's pretty cool. Then we have Iros, God of Victory, pretty much gives menace to your creatures. I think that's awesome. And attacking creatures you control can't be dealt damage. That's fantastic. Then we have Tajik, Blade of the Legion, indestructible 2/2, but whenever you have other creatures attacking, it gets +5/+5, so he's a 7/7 indestructible then. That's awesome. Heron's Grace Champion has flash and lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, other humans you control get +1/+1 and gain lifelink until end of turn. So there's definitely some tricks you can do there, gain a bunch of life if at all possible. Then you have Queen Marchesa, kind of one of those that you probably wouldn't expect to see in a human tribal deck, but she is actually quite awesome. She gives you that extra card draw off of the Monarch trigger at your end step. That's pretty fantastic. Also, 3 colors. I don't know about you guys, but I love the flavor of just throwing in all these different cards. 3 colors with Anafenza, 3 colors with Queen Marchesa in a 4-color deck. I mean, that's a lot of flavor. That's pretty awesome. Then we have Herald of War. Whenever it attacks, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and angels and humans cost 1 less for each +1/+1 counter on it. Perfect for this type of deck where we also have a theme of angels. Thalia's Lancers tutors up a legendary card from your tutor up one of our awesome legendary creatures. It's fantastic. Also not a bad creature. Soul Tender, which can get us back our creatures from our graveyard. Also gives an Anthem as well. Pretty solid card. Definitely one of the better partner commanders that we have. And then we have Sigarda, Heron's Grace, one of the awesome angels in the deck. Gives our humans hexproof as well as ourselves but really it's our humans that we care about. Fantastic, and it's very difficult to just make it all humans when it comes to human tribal without including these awesome angels, because they just offer so much power to the tribe that it would be really a shame just to forget about a lot of these awesome cards. And that's just another theme with the Innistrad plane, is that the angels, they were sort of meant to protect the humans, and I think that's really cool. Then we have Samut, Voice of Dissent, gives our other creatures haste, which is fantastic. She has vigilance and double strike herself, so she's awesome. Also has flash, so you can flash her into play and then just surprise your opponents your next turn. Can also untap a creature if you want to. Pretty powerful option for human tribal. She's fantastic. And then we have Kresh the Bloodbraided, yet another option I don't think a lot of people would consider for human tribal. Technically considered a human. In Jund colors, again, the whole 3-color options that you have in 4-color, it's just fantastic and I love it. But whenever another creature dies, it gets that many +1/+1 counters, so he's going to be gigantic. And there are a lot of ways to give other static abilities like trample, flying, stuff like that, so it shouldn't be too hard to swing in with a ton of damage here. I absolutely love this guy. Then we have Sun Titan, pretty basic. Gets us back CMC 3 or less permanents, pretty solid. Then we have Aurelia the War Leader, not really anything to do with humans, but can give us extra combat steps, so why the hell not? This is a combat focused deck after all. Angel of Glory's Rise, exiles all zombies, so if you're going up against zombie tribal, this is the card you absolutely want. And why not? Because it also gets you back all your humans from your graveyard, all for a 7-mana angel. That is just beautiful. And then we have Bruna the Fading Light. Honestly, we don't need Gisela the Broken Blade. I know a lot of people would be like, well, why wouldn't you take advantage of the whole meld mechanic? Well, we don't really need it. Believe it or not, we just want her for bringing back humans or angels from our graveyard, since that's pretty much all we play, with the exception of Metallic Mimic in our graveyard. Getting back any human or angel from our graveyard is pretty nice. And even if that's all she's there for, still pretty good. And then we have Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. Fantastic, doubles the damage anything we would do, and pretty much halves anything our opponents would do to us. It's going to encourage your opponents to swing at each other. Their stuff is going to deal double damage to each other. Your stuff is going to deal double damage to them. You're going to be protected for the most part. Fantastic card. One of the best cards in Boros as well. Then we have Avacyn, Angel of Hope, to top it off with the creatures. And she's fantastic. Not really anything to do with humans, but again, we want to protect our permanents, make them indestructible. Once you get her out there, you're just going to grind the game out and likely beat them down. And your creatures are likely never going to be dealt with unless your opponents have some sort of mass exile removal. And then we do play one Planeswalker, which is Elspeth Sun's Champion. She's perfect for this type of deck. We kind of want to go wide anyway. Unfortunately, the soldiers are not considered humans, which is the only drawback. But other than that, though, pretty solid Planeswalker in white. If you have to go with any white Planeswalker for combat-based strategies, she really can't be beat. Then we have some awesome enchantments. We have Sylvan Library. For some consistency off the top of our deck, we can pay that extra life if we want to hold on to whatever we want to hold on to. Helps us win the game. Phyrexian Arena, same thing, gives us more consistency, gives us extra card draw at the cost of 1 life during our upkeep. That's not bad either. Aura Shards, fantastic, non-creature removal in a creature-based deck is always awesome. Likely your creatures are capable of picking up the pieces when it comes to your opponent's creatures, so why the heck not? Cathar's Crusade gets our creatures bigger whenever they ETB, +1/+1 counters for your whole team. Fantastic. Assemble the Legion. If left alone, you're just going to get a whole army of these little red-white soldier tokens. Unfortunately, they're also not considered humans, but still, the whole going wide strategy with tokens is also a sub-theme, so why not? Mirari's Wake is fantastic in any green-white deck that's, 3, 4, 5 colors. You're going to want it. It's going to give you extra mana, and it doesn't really matter what land you're tapping for. It's going to tap for double. Fantastic card. It also gives an Anthem. And we also play some sorceries. We have Demonic Tutor. Again, we don't play a lot of answers in the deck, but if we can get to Avacyn, Angel of Hope, or Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, we can help win the game a lot quicker. Our creatures are going to be able to deal double damage, or they're going to be indestructible. Demonic Tutor is just a staple in black in general. No matter how many colors you're playing, pretty solid. Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, awesome for green. In just about any single deck you play in this format, honestly, I would put it into every single deck that plays green. Getting mana fixing is awesome, and getting 2 different basic lands, especially in a 4-color deck, can't be beaten. Increasing Devotion gets us 5 human tokens, so that's the big deal here, is that they're considered humans. Otherwise, we wouldn't be playing a token spell like this. We could also flash it back to get 10, so that's pretty awesome. Patriarch's Bidding gets back creatures of the same type from their players' graveyards. Likely, we're going to be one of the few tribal decks at the table that's playing humans, so we can bring back our humans. Hopefully our opponents don't bring anything back like that, and they don't get zombie tribals out there or get dragon tribal, anything other tribal decks can do with Patriarch's Bidding that could be pretty nasty, that we don't want this to backfire on us. And then we have Blasphemous Act to kind of pick up the pieces there. It's 1 red most of the time to wipe the board. One of the better cards you can come across. The cost reduction is just so good. And then we do have some instants here to give us that extra bit of removal. That's primarily what these are. Swords to Plowshares, Anguished Unmaking, and Sylvan Reclamation. Swords is pretty much a staple. One of the best cards in the entire game. Anguished Unmaking can get rid of just about anything, with the exception of lands, at the cost of 3 life and 3 mana. So that's not bad. Sylvan Reclamation can exile 2 different artifacts or enchantments, so that's pretty good. And at the very worst, you can just cycle it away for a basic land. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this 4-color human tribal deck. For one of my patrons, Ugamon, thank you again for being an awesome patron. Link for that will be in the description below if you also want to get in on this. Or even if you just want to support the channel, I appreciate anything, guys. I just want to let you all know that I've been enjoying these deck techs. I've been enjoying looking up all these different synergies, what cards I can put into these decks. And I really had some fun these last couple weeks. I absolutely loved the Elish Norn deck tech, Anthem City, fantastic. And I absolutely love this deck. I want to build just about every single deck that I do a deck tech for. Unfortunately, I don't have the actual money or resources to get that done. But I still love brewing, and I still love looking at all these different options. Fantastic ideas that my patrons are giving me. And Saskia, pretty fun commander. So anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here, signing off.